All right, let's just punch it. Just going to give it 1 second for that to go live. Hello, folks. Welcome back. As always, I am Fritz. I like to make historic brawl decks. I'm also realizing that at this exact moment that my webcam frame is ever so slightly off, so I'm going to tweak that real quick before it drives me nuts. There we go. All right. Now that travesty has been rectified, so this is just going to be me going through all of the new historic brawl commanders, which is to say all legendary creatures and planeswalkers in the new one set, and giving my terrible predictions on how good I think they will be and if they're going to be played to any extent, and also just general thoughts and set review stuff. I was thinking I would do something fancier for this, but time got out of hand. It didn't happen, so we're just going to be, doing this. Also, why is this card selling for... Okay, it's the alt art. That's why people have listed it for $80. Anyway, so we'll just start at the beginning because this is going to be mostly alphabetical order. Atraxa, Grand Unifier. The biggest little piece of trivia that I know about this card is that it is the second 4-color commander that we have in Arena. The only other one is one of the Omnaths. Outside of that, I don't think there's too much that I want to say or care about with this. I think this card's very heavily costed. The closest equivalent to it right now is probably something like Tiamat or the 5-color Niv Mizzet, in that it gets cards out of your deck. So, it's look at the top 10, and it's all creature types. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 creature types. So it's look at 10, grab up to 7. I do not think it's going to be very good in Historic Brawl. It sits in that sort of weird high color slot. It doesn't have access to red. I don't think that'll hurt it too much. But I don't see it getting you more than 3 or 4 cards. And maybe that's fine if it can come in and sit around for a little bit. Or maybe it's fine if it just works as a 3 or 4 card draw. But it reveals those. It's a 7-drop, which is pretty expensive. And it's basically already in 5 colors, right? So anything that's going to be competing with, it's going to be competing with the other 5-color commanders for space, and I don't see it being much better than the other 5-color commanders. So I can't wait to find out that I'm horribly wrong 5 seconds after this set comes out. Let's talk about Drivnod, Carnage Dominus. Creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. That ability triggers an additional time. 2 black, Phyrexian mana. Exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard. Put an indestructible counter on Drivnod, Carnage Dominus. So, I think Drivnod is good. I also think that Drivnod is more likely to be played as a supporter than as a commander. I think a lot of the stuff that cares about creatures dying, like we have a couple in Blood Artist and stuff like that in mono black, but I think the other ones, a lot of them are in white. So it's Tesia. Who are the others? There's a couple other vampire stuff. So I can see this immediately being vampire support. As a commander on its own, it doesn't have any sort of punch through, right? It can make itself stick around a little bit longer for 4 life. That's not to say it won't die. It'll still eventually, something can probably wipe it out, hopefully. Hopefully, if your opponent plays this, you are running some form of non-destruction removal. I think it's going to be okay. I think it'll be used in other decks that would like its double triggers. I'm not sure that that means it's going to be a good commander on its own. Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, or as I've learned that people are calling this, I'm going to mispronounce this. So there's a card called Panharmonicon. It doubles triggered abilities. People are calling this Panharmomicon, and I hate that. And I hate that that's a thing that now exists in any form in my brain. And will. And I won't forget because of who I am as a person. Anyway, Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, aka Panharmomicon. 4 and 1 white. Vigilance. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that trigger doubles an additional time. Permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger. There is a lot of excitement around this card. The fact that it's at $40 for a basic printing, I think, kind of does that. But hey, we play in arenas, so this costs 1 rare mythic. I do not think this is going to be a very impactful commander. And I'm probably going to have to eat my words in a month or so. But it's a 5-drop. It's a very good ability, but it's in mono white. Mono white has mostly from a more competitive standpoint, right now it's categorized by aggro. Elish Norn is not necessarily a good head of an aggro deck. It's a really good ability. It'll probably go into other decks. And it's... I don't... Off the top of my head, it doesn't feel as good as Sheila Dread did, right? It feels a little bit more expensive for a little bit weaker stat line. Yes, it has Vigilance. I'm not sure how much that does for you. But I don't hate it. I don't love it. If you took the hype that was generated around this card and assumed it was related to historic Brawl, I would say this card is overhyped. It's good, but it doesn't have any built-in protection. It's not costed to the point of obnoxiousness as a 5-drop. And being in mono white means it's not going to be a fantastic commander. Now, I could be wrong. It could turn out that a month from now, the new best strategy is mono white Elish Norn enchantments, where you just play all the remove target non-land permanent cards, and you copy those twice, and then you remove 2 permanents each time you play a 3-drop. But I don't think that's going to happen. Azuri, Stalker of Spheres. I am personally excited for this card, which apparently nobody shares my enthusiasm, but I think he's going to be fun. Whenever you... Basically, he's a 4-drop, or you can play him as a 7-drop that is proliferate twice and draw 2 cards. I think he's going to be fun, and I think he could be a decent head of a Counters Matter or blue-green Planeswalkers deck. We already have a lot of really good Planeswalkers in both those colors, and the fact that you're in blue-green means that you also get access to a lot of protection. I think he could be quite good. I think he also is in the colors that already want to bounce. So I am enthusiastic about this guy. I don't think he's probably not top tier because he doesn't have something like Flash on him. So you have to play him on your turn. But I still think he's pretty good. Geth, Thane of Contracts, aka... Oh. Well, while this loads, Geth, Thane of Contracts, aka the worst Reanimator card you have ever seen. Other creatures you control get -1/-1. 1 and 2 black, tap, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains if this creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else, activate only as a sorcery. Okay. This might have a role in Fiddlesticks. On its own as a commander, again, mono black, it's mono black Reanimator, which will probably be mono black self-mill. I don't like the fact that when you pull stuff out, it then never goes back again. That's the part that concerns me. The other creatures you control get -1/-1 is also a little frustrating because it means you're not really going to be doing... You can't get small stuff back, or you can't get stuff that generates like tokens back, really. And the fact that it's sorcery speed is just kind of terrible. Now, I wonder... So it doesn't cast, so there's no immediate Paradox Engine cheese. I don't love this. It feels very slow. Rizug was in a very similar position of effectively being a sort of weird Reanimator. I guess Rizug worked, but part of the reason Rizug worked is this is in some ways better than Rizug, in some ways worse. He might be fun to play in a Rizug deck, though. No, but he doesn't actually synergize with Rizug because you can't double reanimate. I don't know. I don't love him. Probably a bomb in Limited, but outside of that, I'm not enthusiastic. Glissa Sunslayer. This, I think, is one of those cards where I looked at it, and I was like, eh. And then I looked at it again, I'm like, wait a minute, that's actually kind of really good. So, First Strike and Death Touch. Whenever Glissa Sunslayer deals combat damage to a player, choose one. You draw a card and you lose 1 life, destroy target enchantment, remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. I think it's also worth noting that this is a elf. So this can go in existing Abomination of Llanowar decks. I think this is quite good. I think it will probably get added to a couple decks. Also the Tyvar black-green, I believe, is also a thing that exists. Those two will probably play this. I don't know if it replaces Tyvar. I don't know if it really replaces Abomination, but I think you could do a little bit of a build around with it. I also think it's just a lot of value. First Strike Death Touch is a really annoying combo, and I feel like this will make... I'll be curious to see how this performs against Go Shintai decks, just because I think that will be neat. I'm just happy to see more enchantment removal. Enchantments should be removed. Death to enchantments. Graz, Unstoppable Juggernaut. Now, if it wasn't for another card that we're going to get to much later in the set, I would say that Graz, Unstoppable Juggernaut is the worst commander in the set. But because there's another card in the set that I hate even more than Graz, I'm going to say he's probably going to be the second worst commander, just because I want to believe that he's better than this other card. Juggernauts you control attack each turn if able. Juggernauts you control can't be blocked by walls. Other creatures you control have base power and toughness 5/3 and are juggernauts in addition to their other creature types. So, if you can turn all your opponent's creatures into walls, and you can get 8 mana, and you can play Graz, then maybe before he gets removed, he'll do something cool. That said, I don't think he's going to be very impactful, if at all. His stat line is not great. His abilities are more drawback than they are bonus. The fact that he doesn't do something like Giving Trampled means that the 5/3 stat line means that all your creatures are now going to charge in and potentially charge into their death, and they won't even punch through. He might get played, and I use this in the most stretching of information way possible. Maybe Graz gets played in some sort of... Actually, I want to see if I can I do... Does that look better? No, that does not look better. This looks a little better, though. Maybe Graz gets played in some form of token deck. I doubt it. Jace, the Perfected Mind. Yes, it'll be played. Will it be played as a commander? I don't know yet. I think it would be fun to build Jace as a mill commander, but 100 cards is a lot of cards. Jace, I think, will absolutely be played because his -2 after a certain point in the game amounts to 3 mana, draw 3 cards. That's what we call good. I guess 3 mana, 2 life, but life is a resource and you should spend it. I'm surprised these are as expensive as they are. Surprised the Weeb one is more expensive than the Phyrexian one. I personally like this. If I get him, I will probably start slotting him into blue decks to try him out. His +1 is not as impressive as it could be, but his -2 seems quite good. Especially if the game goes long and the fact that you can play him for 4 mana or for 3 mana. And of course, it makes a loyalty difference, but hey, that's life. Jor Kaldeen, first Gold Warden. Okay, so white-red Equipment Matters is an archetype that exists. I believe that the primary example of the best guy in that archetype right currently has been Brunor from the... Not Baldur's Gate, from Forgotten Realms. Is it Brunor? He's the guy who makes that for free. I think that Jor Kaldeen could be a slot into that deck, in that he's already in the colors that you want. He does something valuable, and that's useful. He also has Trample, which is good. So he might be played in that deck, but I'm not sure that he surpasses Brunor as a meaningful white-red equipment commander. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Personally, if I get a copy of him, I think it would be really funny to try to do, if this ever comes to be possible. I think doing a deck where you perpetually buff him up to a 4/4 so that he's always going to be able to meet that 4 power or toughness effect without any equipment, I think that would be interesting. But again, that's digital only and relies on alchemy. And I don't know if there's any easy ways to do that off the top of my head. Still, though, I think that he could go into Brunor. Kaido, Dancing Shadow. This is a card that I feel like I'm just wrong about, because every time I look at this, I'm like, I'm not very impressed. Which probably means I'm missing something about why the card is good. So it's like, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage, you may return one in your owner's hand. If you do, you may activate loyalty abilities of Kaido twice this turn rather than once. So I guess he's 4 mana, draw 2 cards each turn. That could be really good if you can get something through. Or you use his -2, and then you start punching in to try to do stuff. I don't like him very much. He might turn out to be a staple that you just play because he's good. But I don't personally like him very much. As I say that, I'm now looking at his +1, and that's actually really good. Okay, so maybe he just turns into a blue-white, a blue-black staple. I still don't love him. Karamonix, the Rat King. Probably the card I've spent the most time thinking about. So, I think that this is going to be played as a commander. I think it's a replacement commander for Maronar. I think this is a upgrade for existing rat decks. I am very curious to see if that works out. I don't think, so let's just go over it. 1 colorless, 2 black, legendary creature, Phyrexian rat, Toxic 1, other rats you control of Toxic 1. When he ETBs, look at the top 5 of your library. You may reveal any number of rats, put the revealed cards into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So, Karamonix gives rat colony decks something that they very badly need, which is incredibly consistent, easy card draw. So I think that he extends the reach of Rat Colony decks a little bit. Right now with Rat Colony, if your opponent stabilizes, and I actually, in order to test this theory, I was playing around with it for a bit. Right now with Rat Colony, if your opponent stabilizes off of just trading and shock, because you've committed to Rat Colony, your deck is all Rat Colony, you have no card draw. There's very little way to play back into the game. There's very little way to get any gas back. Karamonix offers potentially a very easy way to get gas again. And you can replay him probably 2 to 3 times before it's a problem. So I think this will potentially be played as a replacement for Maronar in Rat Colony decks. Or at the bare minimum, he'll go in the 99. There's no reason to not put him in the 99. Kea, Intangible Slayer. This is a funky one. It's really, really highly costed. It's pretty good. So it might be played in control lists, but I don't know that it's going to be... It's just costs so much mana, right? But hey, a 0-drop, draw 2 cards is pretty good. The hexproof is very interesting. As a commander, I think it'll be very difficult to build around. Because you're going to be trying to play black-white control, and this can still be countered. So in matchups into blue, it's going to have a very, very rough time. In matchups into most other colors, it might have a much better time. It probably enables some weirdness with the fact that you can exile enchantments and turn them into creatures, but it's so expensive that it feels like it might be a win more card. Still probably a bomb unlimited. I guess it's only 7 instead of 8. That's my bad. Nope, we were supposed to go to the next one. Kemba, Conduring. So, Cat Tribal now has a leader. 1 colorless and a white legendary creature, Cat Cleric. Whenever Kemba, Cat Conduring, or another cat ETBs, attach up to 1 under your control. Attach up to 1 target equipment you control that creature. Equipped creature get +1/+1. Create cats. So it's cat artifact control. Again, oh, no, I don't even think it goes to Brunor because it's too expensive to be valuable. The fact that he triggers on himself is pretty good, which means he can enter and just pull Swiftfoot Boots or a couple other things onto himself. He'll be used as a commander. I don't know how good he will be. I don't think he's good enough to upset the balance of power. And again, equipment is always kind of spicy because if you play equipment, that means your opponent now has more things they can remove. Are there any other... There's Caddy... So, okay, I'm the only person I think who's ever played this deck. You could do... This guy would actually work decently with Caddy Bry of Mithril Hall, just because that's also an Equipment Matters deck in green-white. And so you might be able to stuff a few more little cats in. But... he's not bad. He's just not amazing. And you do have to have that equipment to get value out of him. Kethic, Crucible Goliath. I remain convinced that somebody's going to find a way to break this card, and I'm just too stupid to see what it is. 2 colorless, a black, a red. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary creature card with lesser mana value. Put it onto the battlefield, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Oh, you just build this with Reanimator. You sacrifice your heavy stuff and then pull it back. And then you do that to just pull out other big stuff. I'm dumb. Is that going to be good? The red doesn't do a huge amount for us. It feels janky. Is there... You'd need, like, very specific... I haven't tried to build anything with him because I looked at him and I'm like, I just don't get it. I don't think he's amazing in terms of value unless I've forgotten about some sort of black-red ETB effect that's just so great that it'd be worth building around. I think he'll be fun, but I'm not sure he'll be very good. Kinzu of the Bleak Coven. Okay, I don't know that we'll be getting this card on Arena. This is one of the Jumpstart exclusives. Previously, Jumpstart exclusives have gone not into the booster packs, but they've gone in as unlockable cards on the Battle Pass track. So it's entirely possible that we get those from that. With that said, whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life and exile it. If you do, create a token that's copy, except as 1/1 and as toxic. Flying. Oh, so it's a 1 cost higher version of... What's that dude? Shadow... Oh, why am I blanking on the name? It's from the Theros block. I'm gonna look it up. It's a nightmare creature. It's a demon. Not you, not you, not you, not you, not you. I'm gonna apply another filter. See it. It's a 4-drop. Where did you go? Oh, you know, no, it's not a nightmare. It's a demon, isn't it? There's a lot of demons in 4. That's unfortunate. Mindrak, Plague Drone, Razor Maw. Why am I blanking on this? Okay, there's a card that already exists that does something very similar. And I can't remember its name. Oh, well. The point is, this is a upshifted legendary version of a card that we have seen before. You may pay 2 life and exile it. So it's an optional effect that you pay life for. The copy gets Toxic 1. I'm not sure that's super relevant. It might go into vampire decks, existing vampire decks. It's not terrible, but a lot of existing vampire decks are token vampires, as opposed to just vampire value. As a commander on its own, it's a little expensive, and the fact that once you've exiled something, it's just going to be gone doesn't feel like a huge amount of value. But we'll see. I don't even know if we're getting the card on Arena. Koth, Fire of Resistance. There was a point where I was doing a short musical about all the cards in this set, which was going to be my review. And this one's line was, "Oh look, what red needs, land searching." So yeah, Koth, Fire Resistance, 2 colorless, 2 red. +2, search your library for a basic mountain card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Deals damage equal to target creature, equal to the number of mountains you control, and -7, get an emblem. Whenever a mountain ETBs, emblem deals 4 damage to any target. I want to check one thing. Okay, so this is not... What is this one? Store Championships. So this is not a promo. It feels very similar to one of the first cards I ever owned, which was a Koth. It'll probably be played. I don't know if it has a role as a commander in Historic Brawl right now. The fact that it's searching for basic mountains as opposed to non-basic mountains is a little relevant, but not hugely. As a Super Friends tool, the emblem is fine. As a limited bomb, I'm kind of actually surprised it's rare now that I look at that. The -3 is pretty bad. The +2 is okay. So I guess it's only 2 turns to get the emblem, and then you can keep going. So, passable. I probably would not build around it as a commander. It's going to be very hard to protect it in mono red. Luca, Bound to Ruin. It's completed, so you can pay for some of it with life. It is a 4 or 5 drop. Add 2. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activate abilities creatures. -1. Create a 3/3 Phyrexian toxic creature. -4. Deals X divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control as you activated this ability. That -4 is kind of interesting, since if you cast him for his full cost and resolve him, that could become quite a large amount of damage. And it also doesn't matter if the creature you controlled afterward gets removed because of how that's worded. You got into the early access. The red planeswalker's good. Nice. Nice. I'm curious to see how he does as a commander. He seems relatively useful, but I'm not... Like, he seems good and limited, but I'm not sure about as a commander. Luca, This is a Domri raid, but with a different name, is what this is. Do I like it? So the thing about a lot of the other Domri raids that I kind of liked is often they made your creatures uncounterable, and this feels a little bit highly costed. Especially if you cast him for 4 and he only enters with 3 loyalty counters. I don't think any of the Domri raids in the past have ever been fantastic on their own. If you cast him for 4, then the next turn you can play what? A 7? Oh, so let me think about this for a moment. So, what's the fastest you're casting him? Turn 1, Elves. Turn 2, Arcane or Mind. I guess if you cast him on turn 3, and then you're dropping a... Then you're dropping a 7 on turn 4. That's not terrible. That does assume, though, that everything goes well and your elves don't get shocked. I kind of like him. Someone I don't like, though, Malactor, Purity Overseer. So it's taken a moment to load, but we may as well go over this guy real quick. When Malactor, Purity Overseer ETBs, create a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. Beginning of your end step, if 3 or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control this turn, create a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact token. Okay. If I somehow managed to play 3 artifacts in one turn, I guess it doesn't say non-token, so maybe if I'm generating a bunch of treasure or something, as we all know, blue and white, very well-known treasure-generating colors. If you manage to play a ton of artifacts or you get a bunch of tokens or something weird, then maybe this is easier to get. But this ability feels like a win more ability. It doesn't help that this guy is a 1/1. That's a terrible stat line. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, why on earth is this a 1/1? Probably because in limited, if they gave you they can't really do much more than give you 4/4 on body worth of bodies for 3. But that's still kind of awful. This feels like a win more card in that, for starters, it's not each time 3 artifacts enter the battlefield under your control. It's end of your step, you get 1 more Golem, which means you're going to have to be playing a very aggressive control shell, because otherwise Malactor is going to get shocked, lightning bolted, he's going to die like that. And he just doesn't... If you somehow got 3 artifacts onto the battlefield under your control, it's like, congratulations, you got a 3/3 Golem as well. That's like a bonus prize. That's a consolation. Like, if you ever go to an arcade and they have the big, like, bar in the back, and somewhere they're going to have, like, in the corner, they're going to have the cheapest thing that you can buy off the arcade rack, right? It's going to be like 5 tickets. It's going to be like half a Tootsie Roll that's been individually rewrapped. That is what this 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem is. It's like, congratulations, you've somehow managed to play 3 cards, have a 3/3 Golem for your troubles. Once. I don't even think it's a bomb in limited. It might just be overvalued for its stats in limited, but this does not feel like a good card. Melira, the Living Cure. A green, a colorless. If you would get one or more poison counters instead, you get one poison counter, and you can't get additional poison counters this turn. Exile Melira, the Living Cure. Choose another target creature or artifact. When it's put into a graveyard this turn, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Okay, the second ability here is the only one that I personally care about to any extent. Mostly because... Okay, so let's talk about Toxic and Poison for a moment. I am not a very special cool creator, and so I've not been able to get into early access. MTG Hillbilly, if you happen to have any like secrets or advice on how you got into that, I would love it, because I have tried a few times now with my nice polite little emails, and I haven't even gotten the fuck off email back, which is a little demoralizing. But so there is one poison deck currently that exists in Historic Brawl, and that is Finn the Fangbearer. It is mono green Death Touch into Toxic. That's not true. There are two. There's two. There's also the Completed Ajani. Completed Ajani is a little wonkier because it relies on your opponent being able to keep Ajani out long enough to actually get his emblem. So there are two cards that care about poison counters currently. Now, as of tomorrow, that is going to change a lot because we are going to have Toxic, and that will probably make a fairly big shift in what's possible. That said, I still don't think that the first ability on this card, like, you're not going... Unless something goes horribly wrong tomorrow, there's nothing that's going to say, well, I guess I need to build Melira because the poison meta has just taken over. I haven't seen anything that would make that happen just yet. So, the second ability. This is a 3/3 for 2. That's fine. It's green-white. Choose another target creature artifact. When it's put into a graveyard this turn, return that card to the battlefield under its control. But you have to exile Melira to do this. Is there a way you can break that exile trigger? No, it's part of the casting cost, so you would need a modification on exile. I don't believe there's any modifications on exile currently printed. Like, if a card would be exiled, put it in the graveyard, that would be horrible. I don't even know if there's any cards in all of Magic that do that. There's a couple cards that can be cast from exile, like Mist Hollow Griffin, one of the first mythics I ever got. Not a good card. So basically, it's protecting other things of value. I think the problem, like with most stuff here, is that you're going to have to be sacking this to double protect anything, right? So, for example, your opponent plays your opponent plays a historic... Your opponent plays Destruction. You sack Melira effectively to protect. And then your opponent plays a second Destruction spell, right? And so now they've traded 2 for 2 as opposed to 2 for 1. Is there any cards like... So the way to break this card would be something that's going to want to protect other stuff that ends up sacrificing itself somehow. I might need to think a little bit more about this one, but I'm inclined to say that I'm not concerned or impressed. Okay, Migla's Maze Crusher. One colorless, one red, one green, legendary creature, Phyrexian Beast. It's got a lot of text, so we're just going to look at it. It's a 4/4 for 3. I think this card's probably going to be a limited bomb, but again, I haven't actually played any limited yet. It ETBs with 5 oil counters, so it does care about Proliferate, and it's got 3 activated. 1, remove an oil, it gains Vigilance and Menace, so you can use to beat while also keeping it back. 2, remove 2 oils, it gets +2/+2, becomes an even bigger beat stick. 3, remove 3 oils, destroy target artifact or enchantment. As a commander, the most immediately relevant thing to me that strikes me out is the 3. Remove 3 oil counters from Migla's, destroy target artifact or enchantment. And that's because, this is going to sound kind of stupid for a moment, it means that you can play Migla's, and if you have the extra mana, you can immediately use him to destroy artifacts or enchantments. And that is a valuable tool. The rest of him is still a very good body, right? It's just, commanders don't tend to live very long. They have short lifespans. You know? They tend to come out and they can sometimes just get immediately obliterated. So the fact that you can play Migla's and potentially get some value out of him, even if your opponent immediately tries to blow him up, that speaks well to me for what will happen. Now, the second weird question then is, okay, so what's the build around for the deck? Is it He doesn't have trample, so that means it's like putting +1/+1s on him is not super immediately relevant. Like it could just be green red aggro. Might be the build line, but it'll be interesting to see how he works out. Mondrak, Glory Dominus. Otherwise known as what if doubling season was stapled to a creature? If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens are created instead. 1, 2 white Phyrexian mana, sack 2 other artifacts and or creatures, put an indestructible counter on Mondrak Glory Dominus. Okay, this is going to be played. It's going to be played in existing token decks that are in white, and there's a fair number of those. I would not be surprised if people experiment with putting this into Adeline. The reason being that it's a little slow, but it's not a terrible 5-drop, and it does directly synergize with CHB Adeline. With that said, it's also possible that that doesn't happen, the main reason being that putting anything into your game deck that doesn't immediately pay off your game plan in that list is a little aggressive. I do think this will be played. As a commander, it'll be interesting to see how it gets played as basically a singleton card, right? In the 99, it's oops, I can't believe it's not doubling season. Doubling season, best value. It's in addition to all of that, it's it has a good ability. It's well statted for its cost. It can make itself indestructible and force your opponent to double up on it. I think it's quite decent. So why do I... Oh, yeah. So okay, so then just to clarify something so it makes more sense, I talked about why I don't love the fact that you have to double up for... Your opponent doubles up for Malira and it becomes an even trade. And now I'm saying, oh, your opponent has to double up for this. That's good. That's mostly because, in this guy's case, the thing you're spending to double up isn't creatures in the board. It's stuff that's already in the graveyard and maybe some life. Also, again, because it's not tapped to do this, you know, I guess it is board state, but theoretically it's tokens you're already doubling. All right, maybe I'm just inconsistent, but I like this guy. I think he'll be played. Or they. It's kind of hard to tell what gender pronouns the giant mouth of writhing flesh and porcelain would use. Though if I ever saw it in real life, I would have other questions than that. Like, how did I get here, and how do I get anywhere else than here? Okay, Nahiri, the Unforgiving, Legendary Planeswalker Nahiri, completed. Until your next turn, up to 1 target creature attacks player each combat if able. Discard a card, draw a card. Exile target creature or equipment with mana value less than Nahiri's loyalty from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it. That token gains haste. Exile at the beginning of your next end step. So, my enthusiasm for this card is limited. Specifically, it's limited by this card's ult. So, in this set, the fact that we have a bunch of 4 Mirrodin equipment means that, yes, you'll be able to pull out 4 Mirrodin equipment and get a 2/2 Rebel, and yeah, the equipment goes away, but at least you keep the token, right? In a larger format, I don't think we have too many ETB equipment effects. I could be wrong. Technically, Living Weapon is 1, but that creates 0/0s. That doesn't help us much here. Yeah, create a token that's a copy of it. That copy gains haste. I guess getting creatures back is kind of cool. This feels like a very aggro card. But aggro, red, white, like, white doesn't usually... I guess this... You play it for 3, and it comes in with 3. And then you reanimate like a 2-drop or a 1-drop. I can't tell. This could be really good, or it could just go into the dumpster. It's a little expensive, but that doesn't make me think it's really good. Also, which version of the art is this that's like $1 billion? The ugly one? Makes sense. I think this one's way cooler. I'm not excited by this card, though, just because white and red. Like, I guess you can... I don't like things that give me temporary copies. Temporary copies feels bad. There we go. All right. Nissa, Ascended Animist, otherwise known as, oh, look, it's a second Craterhoof Behemoth, and now it can be your commander. Okay, so cynicism aside for a second, I am actually not as concerned. Like, Craterhoof Behemoth is the finisher in a lot of mono green decks, specifically a lot of mono green elf decks that we see in Historic Brawl. This is not a comp thing. I don't think there are any comp elves, but in non-comp elves, Craterhoof Behemoth all the time. Nissa Ascendant Animist's -7, which if you cast it for its full cost, it can do the turn it gets, is effectively Craterhoof Behemoth. It's maybe a little bit weaker or a little bit stronger, but it's Craterhoof Behemoth, and now it can be your commander. This doesn't bother me, because you can see this card coming. If your opponent plays this as your commander, you should know, and you should be able to see, oh, they're going to try to cast it, they're going to try to use the -7. I can't let them have board state, and I can't let them have board state to have the -7, or I have to counterspell this, or whatever it is, right? This telegraphs exactly what it's going to do. Part of the reason Craterhoof Behemoth is annoying, and the what's the other little dude? There's a Ravnica mono green card that gives everything you control vigilance, trample, +2/+2 until end of turn. And it's a bunch of boars, and I don't remember what it's called. But it's a similar thing, gets used for a similar purpose. Those are frustrating because sometimes they just pop out of nowhere. I've had a game in particular where my opponent had no outs unless they top-decked Craterhoof Behemoth. They had no draw, they had no outs, they had no nothing. They top-decked Craterhoof Behemoth, and then I got punched in the face for about 12,000 damage. So, that's frustrating because it's not clear that it's coming. This, I think, is good. I think it'll be played, especially in mono green, especially in elves. As a commander on its own, I'm not sure. Again, destroy target artifact or enchantment. That's a nice little valuable add-on. I feel like the first and third abilities are the most interesting. The middle one is probably the one that ends up getting used in the most valuable ways in a game. But we will have to see. So I like Nissa. Okay, Ovika Enigma Goliath. It's in the thumbnail for this. This is one of the weirdest cards in this set. It's also one of those cards that I look at it and I'm like, what? 5 colorless, a blue and a red, flying ward, 3 colorless, pay 3 life. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create X, 1/1 red Phyrexian goblin creature tokens, where X is the mana value of that spell. They gain haste until the end of the turn. So, it is not goblin tribal. It is not, but it rewards playing instants and sorceries. It's got a decent ward value. It's a flyer, so it's kind of evasive. And it also costs 1 billion mana. I am very curious to see how this card turns out. I think it's possible that this is a dud. The big person I feel like this is competing with, space-wise, is the red-blue Niv Mizzet, right? In that sort of weird, I want to play a control-y game that goes long enough that once the game has gone past a certain point, I can then go and play my commander and then use my... So I play a control-y early game, then I play my commander, then I protect my commander to generate value, right? Or to do the 2-card infinite combo that Niv Mizzet has, because Curiosity is a well-designed card. They're just such a wonky little dude. I don't know if there's anything that they slot into. They're so expensive that, like, they would need to be slotting into something. Like, it'd be fun to do, if you could find a way to do Goblin Tribal with this, that'd be funny. But I don't think that blue has, like, any goblins. Or any meaningful goblins, basically. So. Oh, you know what you could do with this? Ashnod's Altar. Oh. Okay, so an Artifacts Ashnod's Altar deck, where each time you're casting it, you're basically going to be getting more mana. That's basically just weird combo. That might be fun. I don't think that's good, but that might be fun. Okay, we are now up to Rock Hex Gold Nabber. Again, this is one that we may or may not be getting in Arena. I don't actually know. TLDR, it's a Jumpstart card. Last time we got the unique Jumpstart cards in the Battle Pass. I think I said that before. The cost is too high on this card. On Ovika, Oh, I didn't click the right boy. One. Nope. Nope. Yeah, Ovika feels very highly costed. But I think it's worth keeping in mind that, like, for me, the parallel is something like Niv Mizzet. But Niv Mizzet draws you cards, so it's like, is it even fair? Ruck. 2/2 trample haste for 3. Whenever an equipped creature you control other than Ruck, Hexgold, Nabbard attacks or dies, you may attach all equipment attached to that creature to Ruck. Never get between a goblin and the closest shiny object. Okay, 5-second thing that annoys me just a little bit. So there's like a little bit of a flavor mismatch with this card. I've seen some people who've done like some of the other lore for it. The lore makes it seem like he's just here to steal all your stuff, right? Or the flavor on the card, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna steal all the stuff. The lore is he's like, yeah, no, I'm not letting any of these hex gold weapons end up in the hands of the Phyrexians. I'm grabbing them all, no matter what. Which doesn't really quite come across in the flavor of the mechanics, but the mechanic probably makes them better. Okay, again, going back to red-white equipment matters. It's not an archetype that I play a lot. It's an archetype that exists. Does Ruck have a place in Brunor decks? Actually, probably, yeah. He's relatively cheap. He lets you continually put equipment onto stuff. He might be useful. On his own, mono red equipment means you're playing an equipment deck that has no way to protect any of your equipment whatsoever. That seems like a bad time. That's just me, though. I guess he has trample and haste. How does he go in just existing goblin decks? He's not statted aggressively enough. That's not true, actually. Maybe. I don't really think he's quite good enough. I like his art, though. Rhea Ivor, Bane of Bladehold. Battle Cry. Whenever it attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. At the beginning of combat on your turn, the next time target creature deals combat damage to one or more players this combat. Prevent that damage. If damage is prevented this way, create that many 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might tokens. Creatures with Toxic 1 and this creature can't block. Okay. I can see this card slotting into existing Radic Kel decks. I don't love it as a commander on its own. The Battle Cry is interesting. It could just go into actually existing vampire or existing token decks. The problem I have with this card is that the next time target creature, it's the beginning of combat, right? So you have to declare which creature you want to put this effect onto. And the second thing is, when you do that, you want to be putting that effect onto something that you don't want to take the damage now. You'd rather have the mites, right? So it's like, okay, I could do 3 damage, or I could have 3/3/1/1 bodies. Which is a little wonky to me. 1 second. I'm going to take a brief interception just so I can get some water. Intermission. I'll be right back in just 1 second. All right, I am back with water. My apologies for that, folks. Anyway, Bria Ivor, Bane of Blanehold. Yeah, basically, I don't think that white black usually wants to be giving up damage now, especially if it's white black aggro, in exchange for something later, especially if it's called out beforehand. It's a cool card. The battle cry might make it playable on its own, but I don't love it. Let me just double check that. Yes, audio is being captured. Good, good, good. Here comes the boy. No, I'm doing that again. Here comes the boy. Hello, boy. Welcome. Man, I gotta get better at singing. I like singing, but I'm not very good at it. Okay. Skrelv, Defector Might, the boy. Will he be played as a commander? Yes. Doesn't matter if he's good at it. I don't even need to read the text. Just look at him. He's just such a good little boy. Whereas everybody lusts like being like wanting Dommy Mommy Elish Norn is not something I endorse. I endorse Skrelv, Defector Might, goodest of boys in our hearts. I enjoy this card. I actually hope it gets more lore. Toxic 1, creatures he can't block, so he's basically a Might. Choose a color, another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that color until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creature that color until end of turn. As a commander, he's going to be tricky to build around. He's probably going to have to be using a lot of the new cards. He actually might be better in Brawl, just because it's a smaller card pool and things will be more consistent. In Historic Brawl, the fact that he can give you protection from stuff, that's actually pretty good. That's just a one-drop commander that can help you let you dodge a bunch of stuff. So I like the boy. The boy is good. Slobad, Iron Goblin. Sack an artifact, add an amount of red equal to its mana value. Spend that mana only to cast artifact spells or activate artifact abilities. There is probably either a Paradox Engine or a Planner Portal or some sort of bullshit with this dude. I don't know what it is yet. Overall, I think I like him. I'm not sure how strong he will be in net, but I do like Slobad. If nothing else, he'll be janky. And for me, that's always valuable. In terms of other stuff, he's probably not going to be super competitive from like a CHB standpoint. Solfim, Mayhem Dominus. I am almost positive this is going to get played in a lot of red decks because it's just extra damage. It's decently statted. And it also, like, its indestructibility is not great. But red is not afraid to discard cards. And if you build around it properly, putting stuff with flashback or escape, then actually you can probably use this pretty well. So I think it'll be used. I think people will definitely experiment with him as a commander. If it has any long-term sticking power, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, one of the bigger cards that you'd want to put this in would be an Obosh deck. And I guess he can go in an Obosh deck, but he can't go in an Obosh deck where Obosh is the companion. Tekuthal. Okay, this is the one I'm the most excited for because I like Proliferate. Oh my god, what is that card pricing? Flying. If you would proliferate twice instead. Remove 3 counters from among other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control. Put an indestructible counter on him. I think this is going to be fun. I don't know that it's going to be good. I'm not planning to play him as the commander off the top of my head because he doesn't necessarily have token generation on him. But playing him in the 99, especially in a Nizuri deck, which I think I mentioned earlier, I think would be really fun. I think using him to proliferate planeswalkers is going to be really fun. I think that he's tanky enough that he'll actually be able to sit around for a bit, and I think that'll be pretty much to his benefit. Eternal Wanderer. Okay. I think this card is good. I can't be the only person who's puzzled by the fact that it doesn't have, like, a planeswalker type, and I'm realizing at this exact moment that that might just be because creature type, like the Emperor or whatever, doesn't actually fit in the box. That might be the actual reason. It's a little expensive. The -4 though, the fact that it comes in and basically instantly board wipes, it's probably going to be played, right? It is a 6-drop board wipe attached to a planeswalker, right? So that, I wonder if that actually might have a place in CHB. That'll probably be tested in the 99 for T5 or T4, would be my guess. I could be wrong, but I feel like it might be tested, even if it doesn't necessarily stick. Filigree Silex. This isn't a commander. This is called I didn't put the parameters for this filter correctly in Scryfall, so this card can't be your commander. And it won't be your commander. Thrun, Breaker of Silence. This spell can't be countered. Trample can't be the target of non-green spells your opponent's controls or abilities from non-green sources your opponents control. As long as it's your turn, Thrun has Indestructible. Okay. A decent, if a little expensive beater that can't be countered. This is good because blue players need to know that not everything they do they're not allowed to have a good time. If we're not allowed to have a good time because they can counter all of our stuff, we're allowed to have things that they can't counter. I say that as somebody who likes blue, but I like blue to protect my own stuff more than I like it to play just hard control. As a commander, Troll Tribal is not really a thing, so I don't think there's anything there. He's probably fine in the 99. I can see him going into... He doesn't really fit into a lot of lists because he's just kind of a 5/5 beater. Probably a bomb in limited. I've said that about a lot of these cards. It turns out that a lot of rares are bombs in limited. Does he go... What does he go into? He doesn't go into elves. Does he go into like red-green aggro, I think? As a commander, I don't love him, but... Tyvar, Jubilant Brawler. This is the card that a lot of people are trying to break. I am not sure how you do that yet. I will leave that to the people who are smarter than me. That said, I do know that there's a concerted effort from quite a few people to find a way to make this card do something really busted and broken. Mostly because of his passive. You may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. You can also use his +1 to untap target creature. He will probably... Not probably... This has a place in existing elf decks. I don't know that it has a place as an elf commander, but that'll probably take a little bit to find out. Existing decks, though, will absolutely probably play him. Especially because he lets you use your elves the turn they come in for mana. His -2 is not terrible either, but it's not a fantastic reanimate. His +1 is serviceable, but his passive, I think, is the main draw of this card. So I do think this will be played. I do think it'll get used. Unctus, Grand Mech Detect. Other blue creatures you control have whenever this creature becomes tapped, draw a card, then discard a card. The artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. Until end of turn, target creature you control becomes blue artifact in addition to its other colors and types. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, the activate only as a sorcery part, very disappointing. There still might be some wonky stuff you can do with him. I will probably make a commander with him, just because he's a wonky little deck. He does have a decent amount of card draw. That's good. I don't... The fact that sorcery speed is a little frustrating. But I think I will probably make a deck with him. I don't know that he's good. I do know he will be interesting to build around. Venser, Corpse Puppet. My poor boy. So, one of the first cards I ever got was Venser. I actually have a Venser card. It's one of the very few physical Magic cards I still own. I just have it as, like, a collectible, actually. I'd say let me go see if I can find it, but that would interrupt this stream even more than it was with the earlier interruption. So... Venser, Corpse Puppet. Whenever you proliferate, choose one. If you don't control a creature named the Hollow Sentinel, target artifact creature you can gain Flying and Lifelink. Okay, let's talk about the big problem here. The problem is that Venser, Corpse Puppet is not Rusko. If you want to play blue-black, the question you should be asking is this card better than Rusko? So, as a commander, no, I don't see Venser, Corpse Puppet replacing absolutely anybody right now. He's also not the Scarab God. His ability's kinda shit. The Toxic one, the Lifelink feels very silly. I don't know why he has Toxic. No, I kinda do. He's supposed to be a corruption enabler, isn't he? As a commander, I'm unimpressed. If he made non-legendary tokens, it'd be like, okay, I can build around this. He doesn't. He gives them Flying and Lifelink, and he makes one token. I think he's kind of crappy. Again, I will probably make a deck around him at some point, though, because at least he's He's not even interesting. He's, I don't know. I just feel bad. I miss my boy Venser. Venser was great. But instead, this is what we've got. Just a dude stapled to an annoying rock. Okay. You know how earlier I mentioned that I thought that Graz was the second worst commander in the set? And it's like, what could possibly be worse than Graz? What could be worse than the 8-drop colorless creature that makes it so everything you control is a 5/3 and has to attack? This. It's a 2/2 for 2 that once per turn lets you gain 2 life and makes your opponent lose 2 life. This is one of, like, yes, technically this card is printed in the rare slot. Technically, I would probably, and there's cases where I would take this, right? But this card is just so unimpressive and uninspiring that it makes me almost think that this should have been, my theory is this might have been an uncommon that was actually shifted up to rare because of the effect's complexity or something of that nature. I think this is the worst commander in the set. It is boring. It is small. It is unexciting. It is the absolute pinnacle of, like, a card that, technically speaking, provides value. But I would like to point out that if 2 creatures die in a turn, this card is now worse than Blood Artist. Or at least it's parallel to Blood Artist. And I guess the fact that it has a 2/2 body means that you can go more aggro with it. But I'm sorry, Varan is so boring. It'll probably be played a little bit just because it's a 2-drop, but I just don't. It's such a dumb card. Vraska, Betrayal's Sting. Completed. You draw a card, you lose 1 life, proliferate. Very good. Black now has a very good, meaningful source of proliferate. Yes, it's 5. Yes, it's on a Planeswalker. Yes, this enters with 4. -2, target creature becomes a treasure artifact. Will sack this, add 1 sound, and loses all types. Okay, so your -2 is hard removal. It's hard removal that gets around indestructible. Very good. -9, it's her typical. If you use her -9 and then you proliferate, you win. Vraska's very good, little expensive. I don't know if it will be played in CHB. It'll definitely be played in casual stuff. And finally, Zopandrel, Hunger Dominus. Double the power and toughness of stuff. It's pretty good. The fact that it doesn't have trample means it's going to be a little bit of a difficult one to build around. I think people will still try it. It still might get used in certain decks. But that is everything in the set. And so with that said, I am going to end this stream. And so in a couple months from now, we can come back. We can look at these predictions. We can see what I was right about. We can see what I was wrong about. If you like my stuff, please feel free to subscribe. If you have thoughts, improvements, suggestions, please comment, let me know. I'm always trying to get better. But that is all I've got for today. So until next time, take care, and I'll see you then. Bye.